Okay, you guys, in this video, we're going to take a look at how shutter speed works. So you can see my settings right now. I've got 50 on the shutter, so 1/50. Now, that's because we're recording a video and my frame rate is 24 frames per second. So the rule for the shutter is it has to be double your frame rate to look natural. So double 24 is 48. Now this camera doesn't actually have 48 for shutter. So we're going to the next closest thing, which is 50. Okay. And F is at 4.5 and my ISO currently is at 640. Now, if you look at my light meter, I'm a little overexposed. I'm purposely doing that on the meter because I'm shooting in log and the footage looks a little cleaner in a log color profile when I'm overexposed. So that was a creative choice that I made. So now as far as the motion goes, if I'm moving around like this, maybe I'm going to go for a little bit of a run. Everything looks as it should, okay? There's no weird motion blurs. Here's that again, okay? Everything is just pleasing to the eye as it should be, okay? And again, that's because our shutter is sticking to that double the frame rate rule. Now, let's bring our shutter down quite a bit. Let's go down to about here, 1/10. Now we're gonna have to compensate a bit and let some more, or get rid of some light. So let's bring the f-stop up. Okay, let's go with about that. Now, as I walk back into the frame, okay, whoa, yeah, you're gonna see already. So look at that. That weird motion, that's called motion blur, okay? Now, for video, it's not the greatest thing unless you want that for a creative reason. So if you were doing some sort of film, maybe you're doing like a dream sequence where things are kind of spacey and out there, you could utilize that. But for most professional things where you want it to look as it should, that low shutter isn't really going to work. Okay. In photography, however, things like long exposures, maybe if you're doing street photography and you want some trails of motion blur and then other people walking through the scene, like there's going to be a lot of creative reasons why you would want to stick with the low shutter. In some situations, you may need a tripod to help you out with this, but there are creative reasons why you're going to want this low shutter, okay? So that's what it looks like again, right? Kind of crazy, but for creative reasons, it could be cool. Okay, now we're looking at 1/500 for the shutter. So let's let some more light in. We're gonna back our f-stop down. Let's go right down to 2.8, okay? And we're gonna need to bring the ISO up as well. We gotta get more light in here. Okay, let's go with that. Okay, so now that I'm back in the frame, what you're gonna notice at this higher shutter speed is that if I start moving like this, it's gonna look a little more chaotic and jittery, okay? What's interesting about doing that is if you were gonna shoot a party type scene where maybe you're on the dance floor and there's all sorts of energy and you want that look, that chaotic, faster look, this is going to be very cool to play with. And I do this all the time. Even in things like music videos, I'll do specific passes of the video where I intentionally do that. And even moving the camera back and forth with the higher shutter is really cool. Now for photography, if you're shooting things like people walking, running, biking, cars driving by, birds flying, anything with speed, this higher shutter speed is what's going to freeze that motion, okay? So keeping in mind, fast motion, higher shutter speeds is the way to go. And one last thing to keep in mind is that these settings that we're using right now are working well for indoors, okay? If you're shooting outside with the bright sun and you have way more light, these numbers are gonna look a little bit different. So that's just something to keep in mind.